Welcome to today's webinar on how to capture and recover lost parking revenue by getting on Google's good side. Presented by Precise ParkLink. Today, I will be your moderator and host. My name is Ryan Pettigrew, Account Executive with Precise ParkLink. Joined with me is Adamo Donatucci, Business Development and Strategy Officer, also with Precise ParkLink. We also have Maria Lato, Precise ParkLink. She's the Marketing Manager here. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Richard Picard, Business Growth and Marketing Management Professional. Wow, that's a mouthful right there. And without further ado, I will let you guys take it from here. Next slide.
Thanks, Ryan, and good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's keeping well and safe. We all have been living and adjusting best we can under this pandemic for close to 14 months now. So the data to follow will not be a surprise or new. The parking industry has been one of the hardest hit with significant decreases in occupancy, revenues, and staff layoffs overall that continue to today. How? Record low occupancy rates, record low reduced subscriber rates, and definitely record lost revenues. While focusing on Ontario and Toronto, you could see the impact that the government emergency shutdown has had on the mobility trends chart. That stay-at-home measures have resulted in what they were set out to accomplish. People work or attend school from home as best they can. We are well below the pre-COVID numbers and awaiting reopening measures largely based on daily cases and vaccination levels reaching acceptable levels. By the numbers, the impact has been great. While cities and provinces will vary, as will the effect based on various stages of reopening and closing, generally the numbers follow the below pattern. Monthly parking, you can see the occupancy down 75%, revenues are down 35%. Transient parking, occupancy down 85%, revenues 75%. And overall, the impact has been occupancy down 80% and revenues by 75%. While it's not 100% clear when we'll get back to pre-pandemic numbers, we do have a pretty good understanding of how we're going to get there. But first, we've changed. It may be premature to measure the final impact of COVID on parking, but what is clear is that it has changed how people view their work and in particular, flexible working schedules. This could be seen in a recent poll posted in the March edition of Forbes magazine showcasing the following results. 60% have zero interest in returning to the office. 52% want a hybrid model where they can choose to work remotely. And interesting, 45% noted they would change jobs and only accept positions offering flexible remote options. Flexible work permits to accommodate these flexible working schedules is just one new opportunity that the parking industry can pivot to assist in reopening and ongoing operations. Another new reality is safety. More than ever, we need to instill confidence to monthly and transient parkers that we have their safety top of mind. With this, a variety of new product and services continue to accelerate in being deployed in conjunction with reopening measures, including the following: safety protocols like safety signage and spacing within the building and the parking, hands-free entry to dispense a ticket, tap and go payments in lieu of cash, mobile payments to pay for your parking on your phone, hands-free permit in lieu of a HID card or a transponder, license plate recognition in conjunction with reservations or monthly or daily tickets, and virtual communications, an ability to have someone and assistance through an intercom, your phone, or through any visual representation. And finally, digital marketing. It is very important of showcasing this information and services online and making sure it's readily available and visible to customers. But we'll get to more of that later on in the webinar. The results of conforming to a new digital reality: climbing occupancy rates, increasing subscriber rates, and gaining revenues. Digitization is here to stay. As mentioned earlier, with changes come opportunities. Embracing the power and reach of digital marketing will allow our parking industry to get back to pre-COVID levels quicker and safer, with a focus on digital permits and bookings, digital and frictionless mobility, digital communication and information, and all wrapped around digital marketing.
Well, thank you for that, Donald. Very insightful. I meant to mention prior to your portion there, attendees, if you guys have any questions at all throughout today's presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will circle back at the end of today's presentation to answer all those questions for you. And also, everyone who submits a question will be automatically entered into our draw, where we will announce the winner on our company LinkedIn page following today's presentation. And for the next portion of today's presentation, we have Mr. Richard Picard. Mr. Richard, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in during your lunch hour to join us here to learn a little bit about how we can change the paradigm in reaching that audience, that unspoken audience that wants to find you. My specialty is connecting people to their audiences, and it's my pleasure to be here on behalf of Precise to at least spend a few moments with you, bringing you up to speed on some of the things that you should be considering for your facilities, for your properties, and for the places that you manage. When it comes to looking at marketing your parking facilities, this is something that many of you have been doing for years. So I'm certainly not trying to educate you on how to grow your business, but I do want to draw attention and remind ourselves as to what we're actually trying to do. You know, whether it's capturing the market, trying to reach new people through expansion, whether we're trying to obviously grow revenue and identify new customers, it's important that we begin to tell the story of your facility. It's important that the experiences of your customers, the experiences of your staff, excuse me, and how that gets across to that potential new customer is succinct in such a way that they completely understand what to expect when they come to your spot. It seems kind of weird to say, you know, we're going to put all of this into, you know, earning a parking client. Yes, because what we're looking at is the long arc of time. We're not just trying to fix a short-term problem. We're trying to change the way people see your destination as parking. So let's go to the next slide and see what we can do. In terms of communication channels, it's no secret that 92% of us, that includes you, that includes me, begin our journeys online. Whether we're looking for something to eat or somewhere to park or a little bit of both, that starts online. So we're moving past the season where you put a sign out on the corner where parking is cheap before 9 and it goes up at 12. We're in a season where people are booking their parking in advance, where people are identifying where they want to park, their second most valuable asset. And so being available online, being able to transact online and being able to educate online is more important than ever to your current as well as to your potential customer. Going forward, the number one question that I get asked, I'm an instructor at the University of Toronto. I teach their digital marketing program, and I'm sure Maria and myself, we get these questions all the time, which is, how do we rank number one on Google, right? Well, the short answer is, of course, educating your audience, doing the technical things that you need to do on your website, making sure that you are eligible to rank on Google, as well as telling your story. Google's AI system not only reads words and identifies pictures, but it puts everything together semantically and understands what you're trying to say. And the people who rank number one on Google are the people who tell their story the best and for whom people respond to the most. That's really the key. To get number one on Google isn't a light switch, it's a process. And that's something that I want to keep you guys, keep that in mind as we go forward. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the holistic approach, the 360 marketing. Now, what you're seeing on your screen is a whole bunch of stuff to do. And some of you probably don't need one more thing to do in your portfolio of work. But the reason that you're here is that you want to learn how to attract more people to your destination for parking. You want to increase the awareness of your parking facilities. You want to make sure that those that are already parking continue to park and continue to amplify the availability of their space. So how do we do that? Well, you can do it organically through SEO. Of course, it takes a little bit of time, but it's a very sustainable long-term method to get in front of your audience. Of course, you can buy your audience by online advertising, which can appear on mobile applications and of course, desktop platforms. Excuse me, the commitment of your resource for video and graphic is something you'll need to consider, because anything that's in digital is always going to be an asset that somebody's looking at. Either they're reading some text, they're looking at a video, or they're looking at a picture or some interactive medium. So resourcing your content development, your video, your graphics is going to be important in order to kind of add fuel to this process. And as we kind of come around on the left-hand side, how do we get the message out? Well, we get the message out through email marketing, of course, getting into people's inboxes, showing up on people's feeds and social media, as well as locally, which is relevant to everyone that's on this meeting. Locally, you need to be where people are. If I am next a kilometer away from your facility and I Google parking near me, if you don't show up, that's a problem. And so just fixing your local the capacity for you to be found locally sometimes could be a very short-term fix to bring in some incremental increases in your revenue. If you guys agree with that, just throw a thumbs up in the chat. Let us know that you're there. If what I'm saying makes sense to you, or at least sounds familiar to you in terms of your own business journey and what needs to happen. On the next slide, I want to take you through a few things that you should consider as you look at moving down this path of expanding your marketing. So the first thing is understanding who your customer is, and not just how many cars parked on that day, but actually knowing who they are. Where did they come from? Does the average person that parked there come more than 10 kilometers away, or maybe 50 kilometers away? What's their income, or what income bracket do they fall into? Maybe you could identify that by the value of their car, right? Or the vehicle that they're driving. Understanding that may seem odd, but it's actually the way that you cut ahead, because understanding who's shopping for the spot that you have, where they're coming from, and the amenities or the features that will cause them to choose you over another parking lot is what's going to give you a critical edge. And when you come to Maria or somebody like myself to say, hey, we want you to market for us, the first thing that Maria is going to ask you, the first thing I would ask you is, who's your customer? Because marketing requires me to know who I'm targeting, who am I aiming my message at. So if some of you haven't done the work in terms of knowing who your customer is, that's where you would start, is understanding your customer, what defines them as a customer, and then reverse engineering that to getting to them and getting your opportunity in front of them. The next slide we're going to look at is, I think out of all the slides we've looked at in my segment, this is probably the most important. And this is telling the story of your parking experience. Okay, we are moving, this is 2021, we are in April. We are moving way past the point where you just put up a sign that says, here's the cost of parking for today. We're past that. Okay, we are now into a season where you need to educate and inform people and take them on a social journey organically. I'm reminded of the fact that when people entrust their second most valuable asset to your facility, that's a big deal. They come in, they expect to find that car in the same condition that it was brought in. They expect the environment to be safe for themselves and their loved ones. And communicating how you've achieved that contributes to the buying decision. So again, knowing who parks when and where is important. Understanding what's happening in your community. People shop on what's called a hyper-local basis, meaning that when they come to your facility to park, more likely than not, their final destination is probably going to be less than a kilometer away. And so understanding what's happening in your community around your spot is key. Why? One, it's great to build business friendships with your neighbors, because you may be able to create joint marketing initiatives in order to bring the audience in. Two, to be able to leverage any sort of audiences that may be attracted to them. So if Johnny's Burger has a big base on Friday night and they're kind of parking on the street and parking in the alleyways, if you can find out how to market to Johnny's people, maybe a coupon, maybe targeting their audience, all of a sudden you can attract them to your parking spot. Okay, how can they engage you safely? What can they expect when they get there? Do you have facilities for electrical vehicles? Do you have facilities for electrical bikes? Do you have facilities for mopeds, right? What are the answers to those questions? Do you have bilingual staff, right? Do you have somebody who can provide roadside assistance if a car is not working in your parking lot? All of these questions are questions that are not far-fetched, but are maybe part of the decision as to how people will decide to engage. So using social media as an opportunity to tell the story about your facility and an opportunity to tell the story about your staff, the technology that you use, and where you're going in the world of parking can definitely give you an edge. Establish the conversation with your customers on social media. I tell my class and anyone that I get a chance to engage that social media is the place where offline conversations go online. So when you think about the conversations that you would have with a customer standing in front of the kiosk or standing in front of the parking office, those natural conversations, well, how do you take that and put it online so people can discover more about you? Don't look at social media as the place where you now just post a picture of your lunch. We're way past that. This is the place where you start to tell the story and have the conversation with the people who are giving you that $20, $30, $50, or $100 parking fare. Okay, demonstrate your ability to provide service, right? Not just sell. Okay, the person or the organization that can demonstrate value and demonstrate value consistently without prejudice will always be the one that's selling. Okay, the person who's only selling on dollars eventually will find out that there's a value add that they're missing. Okay, showcase the advantages of your facility. We covered that. Produce insightful and diverse content. Okay, one thing, if you're taking notes during this webinar, I'll leave you with this. Out of 100% of the content that you put on your social media destinations, 80% of it should be for the benefit of the audience. 20% of it should be for your benefit. So what do you mean, Richard? What I mean is that the 20% is where you do the promotion, where you can say, hey, parking is cheap this weekend, or 2-for-1 parking, or whatever the value feature that you're going to use to pull that audience in. 20% of your 20% of your content should be that. The other 80% should be about education, delivering value, and making sure that they're fully equipped to be able to engage your facility. Okay. And lastly, but not leastly, is consistency. It makes no sense to front load all your content on a Monday or Tuesday, and then people can't see you for 2 months because nobody's posting online. It makes no sense for you to tweet, following a big Blue Jays game or following an NBA game, and that's the only time they hear from you is when something is happening, but on a regular basis, there's no way they can hear from you. So consistency is important. I certainly appreciate the fact that many of you that are attending today may not be actively engaged in social media, which is okay. My mother would say, you get in where you fit in. So start with something. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once every 2 weeks, but do it once a week, every week, or once every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. Whatever the consistency is, maintain consistency until you can build that frequency up, and the velocity of your audience will start to grow. The size of your reach will start to expand, and you definitely start to see some results. All right. And then in terms of the last slide, in terms of getting into the game. So in terms of allocating a budget, how much do you got to spend, Richard? Well, I was asked this question a little while ago, and I said, well, how long is a piece of string? When you're starting to get into marketing, ideally in a perfect world scenario, you want to allocate 10 or 15% of your revenue towards growing your revenue. But that might be a big apple to chew at this point. So the one thing that I would say is, let's start with your cost per acquisition. If you understand what your cost per acquisition is for new customers, perhaps that could be a basis point by which we can scale up your marketing spend, right? And at least create a framework that you're familiar with and that within which you can move forward, right? You want to look at the cadence of what can happen over 4 months. So usually within the first month, it's a setup period. You want to analyze your data. You want to make sure your data attribution is correct, meaning that when you're counting the number of people that are coming to your parking lot, where are they coming from? Are they coming from Facebook, or are they coming from a pay-per-click ad, right? So understanding that attribution will be important. Then you get into obviously producing content. You get into analyzing the performance of that content and amplifying, meaning getting those ads, getting that content in front of people who has been identified as potential customers for your parking destination. The last thing that I'll say before we move on to the case study is understand that marketing is an iterative process. You're going to try something, you're going to measure it, you're going to observe what the results were, you're going to make some changes, and then you're going to do it again. If you are the type of executive that just wants to do a one and done, you want to see results so you're out, this may not be the place for you. If you're the type of executive that is patient enough to go through the iterative cycle, I'm certain that you'll be able to appreciate some really great success and be able to grow your revenue, grow your audience, and ultimately find success within the digital space. So I've gone through a lot in a very short period of time. Thank you for your time and for your attention. If you have any questions, certainly drop them into the chat, and we'll try and address it. And I'll turn it back over to the team. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Richard. So how long is that piece of string?
Right.
Well, and I love the point that you made about the customer journey and understanding your customer, because often in parking, obviously the lot is not the destination unless Precise is hosting an awesome parking lot event. But it's often, you know, the surrounding areas, the pulling factors that bring someone to park somewhere. So I think perfectly noted for people to understand at their facilities, at their properties, of why their customers are parking there, what brings them to the area, and what would make them come back. So I love that you hit that point right on the head there. So I'll mention again, just to everyone, I see one question come in there from Orvin. So thank you, Orvin. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free. We only got Richard here. I think we only paid him for an hour. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will circle back on them. And also, if you want to enter your name and your company name as well into the chat, you'll be entered into our draw for an awesome giveaway concluding today's presentation. And I'll only mention that one more time throughout today's presentation, I promise. And without further ado, Miss Maria Lato for the case study.
Awesome. Hi, guys. So now that Richard's gotten us into the marketing mindset, I thought it'd be a great idea to start off by going over a case study that really magnifies the possibilities of digital marketing, especially if you're located within a busy downtown core. So a couple of years ago, we explored digital marketing on behalf of a commercial parking operation in downtown Toronto. The marketing campaign lasted about 4 months and consisted of strong SEO measures, which is basically the process of creating an online presence without spending money on advertising. We also ran Facebook and Google pay-per-click advertising campaigns, spending about $10 a day on each. Totals were so low because the ads performed so well. So this is the beauty of pay-per-click advertising. The better the performance, the lower the cost per click. And because of this particular location, many people clicked on the ads and many people were able to find the information that they were looking for, which made the cost per click so low at about 15 cents per click, which is extremely low. So after a 4-month period, we were actually able to secure the #2 spot on Google, again through SEO measures. And we also saw a spike in revenue amounting to approximately $185,000. So usually, unless performance is being measured through online reservations or permit purchases, we tend to use an industry-safe conversion rate of about 4%. But in this case, when we compared the financial reports from the previous year and took into account several external factors such as a slight increase in the parking rates and the number of nearby events that took place, it became clear that digital marketing accounted for much more than just a 4% increase in revenue. In month 1, our digital marketing efforts accounted for a 45% increase in revenue. In month 2, digital marketing efforts accounted for a 30% increase in revenue. In month 3, it accounted for 29%. And in month 4, it accounted for 11%, lower than the others, but this is because the garage was closed for several evenings during that month. So as you can see for this downtown parking garage, digital marketing highly benefited it. So how do we get here? What do we have to do to make this happen? It's easy to say digital marketing, but as Richard pointed out, there's so many different specialties and areas within digital marketing, within the digital marketing umbrella. And it really does come down to taking an honest and best practice approach to make this happen. You're not going to appear #1 on Google without putting the time and effort in that is required. So it is a process, like Richard said. So Today, I'm going to go over a step-by-step breakdown of initial steps you need to take and questions you need to ask to make sure that when you do pursue digital marketing, or if you already are, you're asking the right questions to make sure that you're receiving the best service. Okay, so step one, back to that burning question. How do I rank well on Google? The process of ranking high on Google is called search engine optimization. So that's SEO. And SEO is all about creating an online presence, such as a website or web page, that satisfies Google's algorithm, which, might I add, is getting smarter each day and modifies itself 2 to 4 times a year just to ensure that they give their customers the exact information they're looking for and fast. So we're their customers. The people that use Google are Google's customers. Step one of any search marketing campaign needs to focus on creating an online presence for your parking facility that features all the information that your customers need to know. This is something your marketing team should be doing internally, and also something your parking provider should be doing as well. The more content, the better, but it is important to note that this content must be developed with SEO in mind. There are many checkboxes that you need to meet to rank well on Google. And this comes down to factors like making sure the web page is mobile friendly, downloads fast, and meets Canadian accessibility guidelines, which were just updated this past January. It also comes down to creating online relationships and making sure that relevant web pages link to and from yours. So for example, the web page your parking provider creates on your behalf should link to your corporate website, and you should be linking back. This is best practice and will increase your chances of appearing in top Google search results. Other factors relate to the content that's on the web page. So for example, you'll want to use a fair amount of keyword phrases that apply to your location without going overboard, of course. Google appreciates natural language. So for example, if you're located near the CN Tower in Toronto, you'll probably want to have a heading on the web page that says parking near the CN Tower or CN Tower parking. It's also a good idea to link to your parking lot address on Google Maps, show people where exactly you're located. Once you check off all these boxes, you'll definitely want to make sure that you set up tools like Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, and make sure that they're attached to your website so that you can measure how many visitors your web page receives and how they behave when they're there. These are also factors that impact SEO and your overall rank on Google. And so once your online presence is set up and you confirm that it is SEO friendly, the next step is then to register your parking lot address with popular online maps, such as Google Maps. But let's not also forget about Apple Maps and Bing Places, and even high traffic websites like Parkopedia. They're all important and they all drive traffic to your lot at the end of the day. So registering your location with these GPS services will ensure a parking location pin appears on all of these maps. So when people are planning their parking ahead of time or using a GPS to get where they need to go, they'll see your location and be more likely to park there. Registering your location with these services also comes with a variety of data and analytics, which we all love. So for example, you can see how many people have requested directions to your facility, which is great for measuring the overall performance. It is important to note, however, that these listings, such as Google Maps, have their own SEO framework. So they should be updated regularly with current details such as your hours of operations. And public reviews should also be responded to within an appropriate time frame. If not, we run the risk of Google no longer showing our location because they think it's outdated. Advertising options where you put money behind your location are also available through these mapping services, and they're based off of location proximity. So they do guarantee that your location is shown in top map search results if you choose to put money behind them. The next step from here is getting your location on a variety of GPS, such as Waze, and also in-car navigation systems. The same theory here applies. If a driver sees your location on the map that they choose to use, and it's nearby where they're heading, it will increase the chances of them choosing to park at your facility. This is something that your parking provider can definitely help you out with. And once these 3 steps are set up, so you have your strong foundation going for you, it's then a good time to start exploring social media, and as Richard mentioned, showcasing your social experience. Show your visitors what they can expect, what's happening nearby, and why they should choose you. Don't just talk about the rates, talk about the overall experience and what people can expect. Being on social is great for these reasons, but it also does help drive traffic to your website, which helps you rank well on Google. If you choose the paid route where you choose to do social media advertising and you commit to showing your ads to people who fit within your demographic criteria, so going back to knowing who your audience is, be prepared to set a daily budget. But just know that once you reach that budget, your ad will stop showing and you won't be charged past it. The same does go for Google Ads. Once your SEO-friendly foundation is set up, then it's time to start exploring Google Ads. When set up right, Google Ads can guarantee you the top search result on Google for certain keywords that you choose, keywords that have to be relevant to your location and mentioned on that landing page that the ad's going to link to. These are all key things to keep in mind. Also, something that's key to consider when you invest in digital marketing is ensuring you have online support resources. Digital marketing opens up the floors for questions and concerns that can be made public. So you'll want to make sure that they're being dealt with and an escalation matrix is in place to protect your online reputation. And lastly, the beauty of digital marketing, which I'm sure we're all aware of, is that it's data rich. And you can use all of this data for customer insights and recommendations on how to improve your future marketing outputs and also on-site operations. When it comes time to planning your marketing outputs, however, it is important that all stakeholders are kept in the loop. I know we're all busy, but we need to make sure that everyone's aware of what's going on. So one thing that Precise finds works well for us and our clients is combining our editorial calendars with performance data. It helps keep everyone in the loop and on track with what's happening, when, and why. All right, so I know that's a lot to take in, but feel free to submit your questions in the chat or direct message me on LinkedIn later on if you have questions about digital marketing. One last key component for you. So whose responsibility is it anyway? Is it yours to do your marketing or is it your parking providers? Usually within the parking industry, digital marketing falls under the scope of your managed parking service provider. However, the scope of this service largely depends on when your contract was finalized. The digital marketing industry changes so much from year to year. Expectations, capabilities are completely different from what they were just a few years ago. 5 years ago today, the marketing section of your contract may have focused primarily on signage, whereas today it's more common to see line items and budgets for online advertising, daily online advertising. This is something to consider if your agreement was formulated several years ago, and just knowing that it might be time for you to revisit it and possibly update it. Another thing to verify if you're currently receiving digital marketing services is whether or not your provider is following best practice. This will impact your budget and it will impact your performance. So you'll want to make sure you're getting the best service by asking the right questions and showing your provider that you actually know what you're talking about. So some questions you can ask are, do I have a web page specifically for my parking lot? How many backlinks does this web page have? What keywords is it being optimized for? And how many visitors does the page receive? If you have a location listing on Google Maps, you'll also want to ask questions like if the listings are verified and do they receive reviews? And if so, how are these reviews being responded to? How many people have requested directions to your address? And lastly, if you're receiving services for online ads, you'll want to ask questions along the lines of, where do these ads link to? What's my daily budget? And are we reaching it? What's my cost per click? These are all valid questions that any digital marketer should know the answer to. And if not, it's just an opportunity to improve your digital marketing approach with them.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria. I think we've definitely come a long way since listing on Yellow Pages then. And I love what you mentioned about the keywords. It reminds me of a story, using the right language and using the keywords. There was a toilet company that had wrote an article on the Toronto Raptors winning the championship. And that had ranked higher than all the sports blogs across the sun, only because they strategically placed, the right keywords at the right time in the right language. And who would have thought that, a toilet company would be, the eyes on the NBA finals. And I know this is probably, very daunting for a lot of people out there. Where do I get started? I just listed myself on 411 online, but I think, with your expertise and our, obviously case studies of successful examples, I think we're in a good position to, assist anyone on the line here or who is looking to kind of dip their toes into the digital marketing pool to see if they can get some return.
Yeah, for sure. It's a perfect strategy for society, which is hopefully reopening soon.
All right. Well, we got a few questions here in the chat, guys. Please feel free to keep entering them in here. Our first question is from Orvin. Now, Maria, this one might be more suited towards you. He's asking about how to market a parking facility for a government building. Can you comment on any integrations that we've done with government entities or lots? Any red tape?
So if it is open to the public, you would market it the exact same way as you would market any other commercial parking facility. You just want to make sure you cover your bases. You want to make sure that your parking specific web page has disclaimers on it. So if you do decide to change your rates on the fly, people know that rates might vary when they do get to your location. But other than that, you would take the exact same approach as a typical commercial parking facility where you sell your social experience, make sure all the information customers are looking for is readily available for them, and that you do appear in top Google search results. And it will be easier for you if you are a government organization because your domain, so let's say it's toronto.com, is seen as more legitimate in the eyes of Google because it's a government organization. So you do have one up there. That goes the same for hospitals or a lot of government non-for-profits. So you're one step ahead already.
Awesome. Well, Orvin, hopefully you heard that. And if you have any questions regarding the compliance, with marketing a government building or a lot, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll point you in the right direction there. Our next question came from Sarah Chuma. Question to Richard. Other than Google, is there any other mode of advertisement that has been yielding positive results the most?
Thanks for your question. I think, all of these modes will yield positive results. I think the way you should look at it is in the sense of the patience that it takes to tumble towards success. Specifically, and I allude to this in my answer in the chat, Sarah, is that one of the things outside of Google that you can pursue is obviously social media, also marketing through mobile ad networks to get your ad in front of people while they're using their phone, perhaps for some other purpose. You are there, especially if your campaigns are set up with a geo reference to it, when they're near your spot or are likely to be near your spot. You will be a brand of choice in terms of parking. But in terms of, which channel will be more successful than not, a couple of things. SEO is successful, takes it a little bit longer. Paid campaigns immediately get in front of people, but you're going to invest to do that. So there's pros and cons along the way. And so measuring those pros and cons against your business goals. And again, patience. To be able to get to the sweet spot of balancing your investment against the return on investment, I think is probably the most important factor. Awesome.
Well, hopefully that answered your question there, Sarah. Now, Adamo, I have a question for you. As a seasoned parking pro, obviously digital marketing has come a long way. I wanted to ask you, what was it like before?
It's funny, we had this conversation about a couple of weeks ago. So I had the analogy about 10 years ago, and not that it was an effective approach, but if there was a Raptor game and you had lots near Rogers Center or Scotiabank Theater, you do the typical, flagger, you have a guy with a baton flagging in, yep, or a large sign. And, still it does give a presence to it, but that was yesterday. That's capturing people who are driving up looking for parking to your location. What we're doing now with digital is you're capturing those people before they leave home or when they bought and purchased those tickets for that Raptor game or the Leaf game, where a widget will pop up and it'll tell you, oh, by the way, there's a parking A here at this price at this time, buy it. And then that's where technology starts to come in. So then you have QR codes to get you into a gated location, or they recognize your license plate, from enforcement. It's non-gated. So you're kind of you're pivoting from the guy on the street with the baton to now going on digital presence. So basically he's waving online. That's what's happening. So to me, that's the biggest shift right now when it comes to that.
He was just talking about our upcoming webinar in May. It's great for all different types of organizations, commercial, healthcare institutions, but it talks about the role of accessibility and what role it plays within your parking garage and how it can help you collect Rick Hansen Foundation certification points. So keep an eye out for it on our Precise ParkLink's LinkedIn page, and we hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Feel free to submit questions in the chat or reach out to us on LinkedIn after the fact. We're happy to hear from you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Have a great day.
Bye,
Thank you.